A very busy first 3 days of NFL free agency, including drama around the local teams. Let's talk some football free agency. We're going to do it with New York Post NFL reporter Ryan Dunleavy, who joins me now. Ryan, how have you been enjoying this busy week?
It's been a busy week, yeah. I've been enjoying it though. It's so much better than baseball free agency. Where Saquon Barkley's signing a contract before Blake Snell, something's wrong with baseball.
You know what? That is a fair point right there. And NFL free agency has not disappointed thus far, especially for Giants fans, because the shocker came for them earlier this week when running back Saquon Barkley, who you just mentioned, left the G-men for the division rival Philadelphia Eagles. Now, Philly, they struck a deal with the two-time Pro Bowl running back shortly after the negotiation period opened at noon Eastern on Monday, and now the NFL is reviewing whether the Eagles violated tampering policies during the legal tampering window. Philadelphia, they have denied violating the tampering rule. So, Ryan, clear it all up for us. What is going on here? How do you see this all playing out around tampering?
So you can't have any communication between teams and players and agents about free agents before Monday. Everybody breaks that rule. Okay. Everybody does. Everybody knows it. That's what the combine is. But what you really can't do is have any direct team, GM, coach, player communication with the player from Monday and Tuesday. That's just for agents. And that's where tampering kind of gets a little bit more enforced. Philly says it didn't happen. James Franklin, the Penn State coach, who's Saquon's one of his main advisors, is the one who kind of let the cat out of the bag that it might have happened. The league is investigating it, a source told me. I don't know how far it'll go. I don't even know that the Giants are really the ones pushing it. I actually think they probably are not. They kind of feel like they had their chance with Saquon, so they're not really. I don't think the ones that are too upset about it. If I was the Texans and the Bears, the two teams that finished as the runner-up for Saquon's free agent services, I'd actually be more mad if I was them if it really happened that Howie Roseman, the Eagles GM, talked to Saquon. But again, right now, everybody's saying it didn't happen, so it probably is pretty hard to prove.
Yeah, you answered a question I was wondering if anybody cared, if the Giants cared. Doesn't seem like they do, and they will be moving on. We will see how that all plays out. So a lot has gone on this week. Got to ask you this. Which team do you think improved the most during the first few days of free agency?
Winning the offseason is always tricky, right? Like the teams that win the offseason very rarely win in the NFL. But I would say the teams that improved the most are probably two of the teams that had the most cap space. The Commanders added a bunch of really good players. Austin Eckler, Bobby Wagner, Zach Ertz, Dante Fowler, Jeremy Chin. They got a lot better, as you would expect. They, I think, had the most salary, like $90 million plus in salary cap space. Added Marcus Mariota, too, which makes their quarterback situation interesting as we head towards the draft. And the Texans added a lot of really good pieces, too. And as I just mentioned with Saquon, they might have improved the second most, and they were a playoff team, unlike the Commanders, and they're probably kicking themselves a little. They end up with Joe Mixon, but they were pretty close to getting Saquon, and what's a really good first week of free agency would have been even better with Saquon.
All right, going with the Texans and Commanders as teams who improved the most. Wanted to ask you about wideout Calvin Ridley. He secured the bag, got 4 years, $92 million, $50 million guaranteed. There's been a lot of talk that Tennessee overpaid here. Is it an overpay, or was this a good contract for the Titans?
It is a wild overpay. This is the same franchise, different regime, same franchise that wouldn't give like 24-year-old A.J. Brown 4 years and $100 million and traded him to the Eagles. And now the same ownership group, a different GM, is giving Calvin Ridley, who's 30, 4 years and $92 million. And I get it, the cap's gone up since A.J. Brown, but obviously Ridley's not as good a player. He's older. It's a very strange decision. I saw somebody tweeted today, and I wish I could remember who, but the list of free agent receivers since 2016 who have changed teams, and it's just like one disastrous contract after another, led by Kenny Golladay coming to the Giants. But really, very few of them ever work out. So it's definitely a huge swing and risky one by the Titans.
Yeah, it seems like an overpay there. We will see, again, how that all plays out in free agency. We talked a potential overpay with Calvin Ridley. Which free agent signing that we saw this week, in your eyes, was the best value signing?
I think it was actually before the free agency even technically started. It was Russell Wilson going to the Steelers. I mean, and not just I mean, anywhere Russell Wilson went, it was such a unique contract that anybody who signed him for the league minimum, I thought was going to get a huge value because the Broncos have to pay him the other $37 million offset. So he can play for the league minimum. He'll probably win the job or at least compete with Kenny Pickett. Maybe they'll both probably end up starting this year. But I don't think it's a bad situation for Kenny Pickett to learn from Russell Wilson. I don't think it's a bad situation to Russell Wilson. If he's the backup, he'll probably have Pickett on a short leash, so he'll get to play. It's one of those situations where I think they're probably a true quarterback position battle in training camp, which is always exciting. And the NFL, Dex, when you say long term in the NFL, that's like 3 years in the NFL. No one thinks 8 years down the line in the NFL. So, like, is Russell Wilson the 8-year quarterback for the Steelers? No. But if he's still the quarterback in 3 years, that means they've done a lot of winning, and it was a great signing.
Yeah, and I think Steelers fans will be happy with that in the short term, especially with the way the team's defense is set up right now. I want to bring it back to the locals before we get out of here. What do you make of what Jets general manager Joe Douglas and Giants GM Joe Schoen have done this week with their moves, and what do you think both teams still need to do in order to improve their rosters?
I'll take them separately. Schoen, I think, has enforced what we've known he's believed in since he got here, positional value. He swapped out Saquon, a top running back, Xavier McKinney, an ascending safety for offensive and defensive line, basically. Rush the passer and and protect the passer. That's what he believes in. That's what he's done. The Brian Burns trade was great value draft pick compensation, but also gave him a $141 million contract. So that's going to be tough to live up to, especially with the New York pressure cooker. But he is an elite pass rusher. And then obviously his next move has to be secondary. The Giants are thin at safety and at corner. They're not deep at either spot. So that's really a spot they need to address. And then Joe Douglas, I'm confused, honestly, a little bit by it. I thought the Jets, historically, Joe Douglas waits, is patient, and looks for the value move in free agency. I thought he'd be a little more aggressive this year since we all know he's on the hot seat and it's an all-in year for Aaron Rodgers. I thought they'd be a little bit more aggressive, realizing that their window is right now, but he stayed true to who he is and what the Ravens and Ozzie Newsome taught him over the years. So I guess you give him credit for not buckling to the pressure.
All right, we will see how this all plays out for the New York teams. If you're a fan of the New York teams, maybe you did not like what you saw from the teams do in the first week of free agency. Either way, it has been a very, very, very eventful week of free agency thus far that has had Ryan Dunleavy, the NFL reporter for the New York Post, on his toes. Ryan, we appreciate the time. We will talk more NFL offseason news soon.
Thanks, Dex.